Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the Archive. It is time once again for my monthly installment of Archival GMing, where I take a look at various issues through the lens of various games I have already covered on the channel. This month, I am talking about party creation. The worst part of starting a new game. Why do I say it's the worst part? Well, first off, you're trying to get a whole group of players to agree on playing specific roles. And you're trying to get them to also work together before the game even starts to make a balanced, or at least functional, party. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about how to get everyone on the same page. One of the first things you have to understand is that every game has its sort of ideal balanced party. You know, the classic Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, for instance, had a warrior, a wizard, a cleric, and a thief. You know, if you had more than that, they were doubling up on some of those jobs, most likely in the warrior group. But you know, that was classic Dungeons & Dragons. Legend of the Five Rings, the balanced party is a bushi, warrior, a shugenja, caster, and a courtier, talker. Shadowrun, the ideal party, is a combat type, usually a street sam, a magic type, usually a hermetic or shaman, a tech type, most likely a decker, because you need someone to do all the matrix running. And for the most part, you kind of want at least a rigger. Just because getting away from the job site is just as important. And, oh yeah, riggers can act as a force multiplier and as a place for the decker to run all the telemetry to. I've always seen riggers as the sort of command and control one-man person. Going, hey, you got guards coming up here. You guys need to turn down this hallway. Hey, decker, cut off this elevator in 3, 2, 1. Type setup. But that's just me, because I love riggers. But that's something for another time. But in essence, every game has its this is the perfect core party. And if you have more players, well, they're gonna double up or help cover the weak spots in one of the other specialists. But that's the core part. Now the problem is, what happens when everyone wants to play the fighter in a D&D game? Or, worse, no one wants to play the cleric. Or no one wants to play the thief. Yeah, this is where we run into the problems. In a Shadowrun game, no one wants to play a decker. Well, you've run into issues now. And unfortunately, there's no real way around it. If your group is going to be balanced, if your group wants to be able to deal with any potential threat that's going to show up in the setting, someone's going to have to take the role they don't want to. Well, that's how most people see it. It really kind of depends on a lot of issues. First off, as the Dungeon Master, you have a lot of leeway in building the design. Or as the Game Master, you can set it up so that there's lots of healing potions. You can set things up in Shadowrun where they're not doing Matrix runs, or where they can hire a NPC decker when they need Matrix Overwatch. In L5R, you can encourage everyone to take ranks of courtier if no one wants to play a courtier. You can encourage everyone to take ranks in combat skills if no one wants to play a dedicated murder bushi. So there's that. But the other way to look at it is not looking by the classes, not looking by the archetypes in the setting, but to look at some general archetypes and pitch it to players like that. What do I mean? Well, there are multiple ways to fit many of these archetypes in the game, if you're not looking at it by the class strictly. So let's start with, what are the actual roles in a party? First role, meat shield, combat. Any game is going to, at some point, no matter how much you try to follow the rules of my last video, it's going to have actual combat. So you need a combat specialist. The second role is healer. Now, healers aren't necessarily clerics in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. And Shadowrun works a little differently, but there are ways for just about anyone to be a healer. They might not be the best healer, but they're able to heal wounds. Let's take a look at classic Dungeons and Dragons Pathfinder. The Bard has access to the cure spells. Cure light wounds, cure moderate, etc., etc. So a Bard can easily be the party healer. In L5R, well, honestly, if you're in a fight and you're not dominating, you're probably screwed anyway. At least in classic AEG L5R. What the healer there just needs to do is patch the wounds. If someone takes medicine and lore medicine, they can actually repair some of the damage you take. Not as much as a Shugenja casting Path to Inner Peace, but they can patch you up, keep you in the fight. Shadowrun, medkits. Medkits can heal wonders. Get a high rating medkit, and you can patch up almost as good as someone dropping a heal spell. And the better part is, it takes effect immediately. The magician doesn't have to sustain it for a number of rounds equal to the damage taken for it to be permanently effective. Okay, so you have fighter, or combat monster, healer, information person. That's the thing. This is one, it doesn't have to be one single person. Bards are great for it, but, everyone can have different knowledge skills. Maybe some overlap. It doesn't matter if it's in taking actual knowledge skills in Dungeons and Dragons, or taking various lore skills in L5R, or the knowledge skills in Star Wars, or the free knowledge skills you get in Shadowrun. It boils down to knowing stuff isn't really any one character's job, or at least doesn't have to be. So you need to look at that. Convince the party to take overlapping or varying knowledge skills. A great example in my current Star Wars game. We have one player who has knowledge Warcraft. We have one player who has knowledge education, knowledge lore. We have another who has knowledge xenology. And we have another who has knowledge education and knowledge outer rim. And between them, they can probably figure out most things that they're going to run into. But that's that example. So, as we continue on, we've got our person who knows things, our person who heals you, and our person who kicks butt for you. You now need the face. The person who talks. Now, this can, again, this is just a case of taking ranks in the right skills, whether it be diplomacy, courtier and etiquette, or the influence group in Shadowrun. Having someone who can talk, that's necessary. Because not every fight is going to be won by drawn blades. Some are won by not being fought at all. By the Shadowrunner who smooth talks his way past the guard. By the courtier who finds the right gift for that lion daimyo. Or for the bard that seduces the gate guard. The usual stuff that happens in a game. You need a face, pretty much. And then, finally, and this one's sort of optional, at least to my mindset, is the stealth person. Because let's face it, you can't always go in, blow the door, come in with the fireballs and bullets and arrows flying. Sometimes you need someone who's going to slip around and do stuff that you guys can't do loudly. This is the classic thief in Dungeons and Dragons, who also served as another role, the tech specialist / trap disabler. Which, yes, that is a important role. But this person's job, the sneaky person's job, is to do all the stealthy stuff. To plant the bombs ahead of your entrance. To poison the general's wine in the middle of their camp. Stuff like that. Now, how do you handle this when someone doesn't want to play the thief role? Well, you make them again, it's a kind of point out that someone should have levels in stealth. Or skullduggery, or whatever the skill in that particular system is for being quiet, moving around, etc., etc. And ultimately, once you've looked at this set of archetypes, it is possible to have a character who's decent at multiple of these. And they're not locked into any one class or classic type of archetype. But everyone should have combat skills. Everyone should be capable of fighting. Most people should have at least a basic understanding of when not to say something. And everyone should have at least something that their character knows. The rest, the healer, the knowledge specialist, the stealthy one, those can be split. But you need to have everyone come together as a group and hammer out what role everyone's going to perform. And everyone has to perform some role in the team. And this is just looking at this view of the different roles, divorced from the classes and archetypes of a system, is generally a good start. So with that, I've talked a bit about how I look at party creation when I'm GMing. Next month, I don't know what I'm going to talk about next month, but I will figure it out, and I look forward to talking with you then. So until next month's Archival GMing, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.